الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين. الحمد لله الذي هدانا لهذا وما كنا لنهتدي لولا أن هدانا الله. الحمد لله على نعمة الإسلام وكفى بها نعمة. الحمد لله على منة الولاية وكفى بها منة. وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له. وأشهد أن سيدنا وعظيمنا وحبيب قلوبنا النبي المؤيد والرسول المسدد والمصطفى الأمجد والمحمود الأحمد حبيب إله العالمين أبي القاسم محمد. اللهم صل على محمد صلوات الله وسلامه عليه وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين سفن النجاة الأعلام من ركب سفينتهم نجا ومن تخلف عنها هلك وغرق. ثم أما بعد. Respected elders, brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum jami'an wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Today we are continuing from where we left from in regard to the attributes and characteristics of what constitute a God-conscious person, as it appeared in the speech or the sermon given by Amir al-Mu'mineen Ali ibn Abi Talib salawatullah wa salamuhu alayh. If you recall, yesterday we spoke about the fact that one of or some of the attributes of this person that has God consciousness or God righteousness in him is that he never wastes or he is never negligent when a trust is given to him. He is never forgetful of what he is entrusted with. He does not abuse people on the basis of name calling. And this is very important because this leads to discrimination. When you call others with names that they do not affiliate with or they don't like, right? It causes discrimination and bullying even. Like, for example, if you discriminate against someone on the basis of their background, on the basis of their gender, even on the basis, for example, of their disability. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in Surah Al-Hujurat, clearly He said, وَلَا تَنَابَزُوا in the surah, وَلَا يَغْتَبْ بَعْضُكُمْ بَعْضَ Surah Al-Hujurat, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, do not gossip or backbite one another, and do not call one another by names which are offensive to others. Yani, for example, if I know someone has a particular physical disability, where this person has no control over this disability. And let's say, for example, someone who's short. He has no control over the fact that he's short or she is short, right? You go and you say behind his back, this person is short, for example. Or you point to that person or to this person as someone that is short. That is called tanabuz bil alqab. Even if you were to use your hand to suggest in a motioning way that this person is short. Yani, let's say, for example, this happened at the time of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. At the time of the Prophet, someone came to the Prophet's house, and that lady who came to the Prophet's house was short. One of his wives went like this after the woman left, pointing out that she is short to another lady. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, you just said one word. If it was mixed with seawater, it would have turned seawater into bad water. Wal-iyadu billah. And it was only a movement. She did not even utter the word. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَلَا تَنَابَزُوا. And Amir al-Mu'mineen also emphasizes on this fact that you should not call each others with names that are offensive to one another. Again, I must remind ourselves, especially in marital relationship, right? Between husband and wife, between in-laws and daughters-in-laws, daughters-in-laws and parents-in-laws, right? How many times we have issues and problems between daughters-in-laws and mothers-in-law. I know these things, sometimes we don't speak about them. What do we do with them? We sweep them under the carpet. But no, you know what? I'm not going to sweep them under the carpet, because there are real serious issues that we need to address, and we need to be very bold, and we need to be very honest with one another, right? If we truly take AhlulBayt as role models, then AhlulBayt should become our role models, right or wrong? Okay. If therefore we are to assume by way of analogy, right? Let's say, for example, or let's take an example that was in existence. What was the relationship of Fatima to Zahra salamullah alayha being what? Being the daughter of Rasulullah and the wife of Imam Ali, right? Who would have been her mother-in-law? Fatima bint Asad, right? Wife of Abu Talib. Okay. If Fatima bint Asad was the wife of Abu Talib and the mother-in-law of Fatima, how would have Fatima treated Fatima bint Asad? Mind you, Rasulullah, when he speaks about Fatima bint Asad, he says, Anti ummi ba'da ummi. But she was what to Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam? She was his uncle's wife, right? She was not like very closely related to him other than the fact that she was married to his uncle, right? Yet he called her a mother after he had already lost his own mother. Why? Because she acted like a mother. She really was a mother to Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam. How do you think Fatima would have been to Fatima bint Asad as a mother-in-law, right? We need to inculcate these concepts. It seems in our culture, and when I talk about our culture, I'm not talking about the Iraqi culture. No, I'm talking about any culture within the Muslim body. Let's say whether you are from an Iranian background, from a Lebanese background, from an Iraqi background, from a Pakistani background, from an Indian background, it seems there is something unanimous among all cultures that a mother-in-law equals snake. Right? Why? Why would a mother-in-law equals a snake? Why would a daughter-in-law equals a scorpion? Right? No, there has to be some sort of respect, and that respect has to be reciprocal. Reciprocal on the basis that mother-in-law respects daughter-in-law, daughter-in-law respects mother-in-law. Secondly, imagine if you have a daughter that lives with her mother-in-law, how would you expect that mother-in-law to treat your daughter? Right? If you are going to be bad to your daughter-in-law or to your son-in-law, you are bound somehow down the track to have your own daughter in someone else's what? Home, right? How would you expect that mother-in-law to treat your own daughter? And Imam Ali sallallahu alayhi and Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, they have a hadith, he said, treat people in the same manner you would want people to treat you, right? It's always reciprocal. Even at times if we have contentious issues, if we have problems, if we have issues of disagreement, we should not use these as a mean to get back at one another. Why? Because cruelty is part of a word in Arabic called baghi. And now we will get to one of the characteristics of a muttaqi. Someone who is God conscious, he does not entertain in himself a quality of being ممن يبغون على غيرهم لا يكون بغيا. He does not encroaches on the right of others, as we will come to that particular definition of who is someone who can be in a position of transgressing against the rights of others, whether that other is related to you or whether that other is what is not related to you, right? The Sayyid al-Masih, salamullah alayhi, Jesus, peace be upon him, he went to such a level of respect when he taught his disciples. He said, if someone strikes you on your right cheek, what do you do to him? Turn your left cheek, right? This is to show respect. This is to show that when you are in a position of mannerism, in a position of morality, you should be forbearing. Forbearing in the sense of what? Forbearing in the sense that you do not allow your principles and your value system to be reduced to the value system of someone who is less than you in akhlaq. No, on the contrary, you should be the person that presents a paradigm of morals that is higher than anyone else. Why? Because you have God consciousness in you. Because you are aware that God is forever watching you. And if you know that God is forever watching you, then you are no longer responsible to that human being, right? You are responsible to who? To Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So when you mistreat someone or you mistreat a human being, you are actually being audacious enough to say that despite the fact that you, God, is the one that is looking at me, I don't care, I will still violate your laws and mistreat that person. It is as if, God forbid, we do not have regard to who? Not to that person, but we don't have regard to who? To Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Like Imam Ali salawatullahi wasalam alayhi, he says, never look at how small the sin you are committing, but look against who you are committing the sin. Right? هو العبرة مو بصغر الجرم أو بصغر الذنب أو كبر الذنب. No. العبرة أننا نحن نذنب ضد من أو أمام من. Who are we actually sinning against? We are sinning against Allah. Then it's regardless whether it's a small sin or a big sin. Right? If I am conscious of the presence of Allah, then it's a different story. وَلَا يُنَابِزُ بِالْأَلْقَابِ وَلَا يُضَارُ بِالْجَارِ. He is kind to his neighbor, as we mentioned yesterday. And you know what? Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, if this is what Rasulullah says about the neighbor, then can you imagine what would be the situation in regard of our character and our dealing and our interaction to someone who is considered now what? Family. Because a mother-in-law or a daughter-in-law or a father-in-law or a son-in-law are now what? Are family by virtue of what? By virtue of marriage. وَجَعَلَ بَيْنَكُمْ نَسَبًا وَصِهْرًا. You are either related to someone by nasab or you are related to him by musahara. By marriage, you are either related to someone by virtue of being related to him through blood, right? Brother, sister, siblings, whatever the case may be. Or you are related to that person through marriage. So you get married. When you marry a girl or a lady, or when you marry a man, you're not actually just marrying that one person, you're marrying the whole family, right? You are now part of that family. And you know, the son-in-law, and I'm not being discriminate between son-in-law and daughter-in-law, but there is a famous saying, I don't know, probably the Iraqis also have a similar saying, or any culture for that matter have a similar saying, you know. I'm even sure that English people have a similar saying, but in Lebanese they say, as-sahr masnad al-dahr. A son-in-law is like the backbone of the family now. Especially if the family doesn't have male children, right? He comes to assume that role of but if you assume that role of being the backbone, don't take advantage of the whole family then, right? Don't take advantage of the wife now in the course of doing these activities. So look what Rasulullah says about the treatment of a neighbor. He says, Atani Jibreel فأخذ يوصيني بالجار. يعني Archangel Gabriel came to Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, came to the Prophet of Islam and started telling him, Ya Rasulullah, O Prophet of God, be mindful of your neighbor, look after your neighbor, make sure you don't hurt your neighbor, make sure you are kind to your neighbor, make sure you feed your neighbor. Until I thought the next thing the Archangel Gabriel is going to tell me, put your neighbor in your inheritance. You know, to that extent, put your neighbor or give your neighbor a share of your inheritance. أخذ يوصيني بالجار حتى ظننت أنه سيورثه. To that extent. وبعدين احنا عندنا حكم بالإسلام 40 جار. We have to look after how many neighbors? 40 neighbors, not in one direction. Oh, ما خلصنا بعد. 40 neighbors this way, or 40 neighbors this way, or 40 neighbors this way, or 40 neighbors this way. Now tell me something. What is the idea of 40 neighbors in each way? لا 40 جار. So that your neighbor will also look after you, and the neighbor on that side will look after you. It becomes one family. Right? One family. And look what Amir al-Mu'mineen salawatullahi salamu alayhi says. صُحْبَةُ سَبْعُ سِنِينَ. A friendship that lasts for 7 years, rahim. Allahu Akbar. Amir al-Mu'mineen says, friendship that lasts 7 years becomes family. You no longer call this person a friend. He becomes your family after 7 years. Imagine living with someone for 25 years and you still call him a snake. La hawla wa la quwwata illa billah. Or a scorpion. هذا يحمل عرضك, يحمل نسبك. This girl is going to carry the progeny of your children. And you know what really bugs me sometimes, and I'm sorry to say this, is our sisters in Islam. That when they say they don't have rights, yet Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, in order to honor them, He gave them the lineage of Muhammad from a woman, not from a man. Right? كل نسب وسبب مقطوع إلا نسبي وحسبي وهو من فاطمة. Ajib. And we find that there is no one that discriminates more against women than women. Sorry. We need to reconsider our interactions. We need to, this is not an attack, this is a joke. You should smile, yeah. We will talk about cracking jokes and having a good time, because this is one of the characteristics also of a God-conscious person. طيب. هذا بالنسبة للجار. ولا يشمت بالمصائب. He does not rejoice at the problems of others. يعني أنا أشوف مثلا someone, he's going through a, let's say for example, God forbid, a financial difficulty, and that person has been at one stage not so good to me. So what do? I wait all my life until I see that person fall so I can feel happy at his misfortune. Can you imagine a human being of that type of mentality? How sick would that person be, right? That I wait for you to fall so that I feel happy at your problem. Well, be mindful that the Prophet ﷺ said what? Don't show rejoice and happiness at someone's problem, because it may be taken away from him and it may come to you. In English, they call it karma. Right? What is karma? You know what is karma? What goes round comes round. So we need to again re-evaluate our way of dealings and interactions with one another. وَلَا يَدْخُلُ فِي الْبَاطِلِ وَلَا يَخْرُجُ مِنَ الْحَقِّ. Allahu Akbar. Meaning, if he is truly someone that practices religion, even if he has some hurt towards someone, even if he has a problem with someone, that problem with that someone would not make him do falsehood, or would not allow him to come out of the truth. ما يطلع من الحق. مثل الإمام علي صلوات الله وسلامه عليه. Like Imam Ali, when he was told, Muawiyah is more shrewd than you. More shrewd than you. Politicians are shrewd. They say someone came out of Russia and he had a statue of Lenin. So as he was coming out of Russia, the custom officer asked him, why are you taking the statue of Lenin with you? You are a Jew. He said, doesn't matter, Lenin was a great person. And I want to take Lenin with me in a statue form, so that every time I remember him, I feel the greatness of that person. He said, go. He did not even search his bag. He arrived in Israel. The custom officer in Israel, he said, woe unto you. What are you bringing with you into Israel? You're bringing the statue of Lenin? This guy killed the Jews. He said, yes, you're right, so that every time I look at him, I curse him. He said, all right, go. He went inside. He went to his village. Some of the villagers came to him and he says, you're a practicing Jew and you have Lenin in your home? What is he doing there? He says, yes, Of course I have him in his home. Because this statue is 24 karat gold and I managed to bring it out of Russia and into Israel without having to pay one tax. Politicians are shrewd. When you have a politician that is very shrewd, they know how to deal with things. So they came and told Imam Ali something similar. Muawiyah is shrewd. قال لا والله بل معاوية رجل يفجر ويغدر. Muawiyah is not smart. Muawiyah is someone that uses treachery and betrayal in the way he operates his government. For Allah and by God, if I was to apply the same methodology like Muawiyah was, what would I do? What would I become? لَكُنْتُ أَدْهَى الْعَرَبِ. I would have become the shrewdest politicians among all the Arabs. وَلَكِنَّنَا نَحْنُ أَهْلُ بَيْتِ نَبِيٍّ لَا نَغْدُرُ وَلَا نَفْجُرُ. Right? The truth does not allow me to leave it, and falsehood does not allow me to enter it. Right? Not so that what they call the end justifies the means. We don't have that in Islam, by the way. The end does not justify the means. What justifies the means, if that mean that I'm using to get to the end is a lawful and truthful means, not a mean that is crooked. Like, what's her name, the Iron Lady, Margaret Thatcher, was asked once, how can you justify the starvation of 250,000 Iraqi children a month? You know, during Saddam's time when they had a blockade against, and they would not send medicine or anything, 250,000 Iraqi children died. She said the end justifies the means. Our policy, our interest in the area justifies the killing of 250,000 innocent children. That's not smart, is it, right? This is cruelty at its best, or cruelty, I should say, at its worst, if I can use the right terminology. And sometimes we are as cruel as these people, but in a different way, on a local, localized way, in a localized way. Today's characteristics of what constitute a God-conscious or God-righteous human being is that in samata lam yaghummuhu samto, i.e., if he goes into silence, he does not get this depressed out of his silence. You know, sometimes we find ourselves in a place where we're sitting, talking, whatever the case may be. Sometimes Imam al-Hasan, salawatullah wa salam alayhi, sallu ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. I think in a wasiyah by Imam Ali to Muhammad ibn al-Hanafi, not to Imam al-Hasan. He says, وَبُنَيْ, he says, oh my child, make sure that you are more concerned about listening than talking. Huh? Sometimes when you are in a particular setup or situation, sometimes it's better to listen, and better not to what? To talk. And listen than to talk. Al-Kulayni, one of our narrators of hadith, he says that Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said, أَمْسِكْ لِسَانَكَ فَإِنَّهَا صَدَقَةٌ. Hold your tongue, sometimes don't talk. Why? Because holding your tongue could be an act of charity. Right? Let's give it a scenario. Sometimes if you don't speak, right, you are doing someone else a favor, right or wrong? Because if you may speak, you may go into an argument and you may abuse that person. So when you hold back, is this a charity or not? It's a charity, right? You don't have to. That's why Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, our Prophet, said what to us? He said, when you are in the month of Ramadan, so that you can practice Sawm, not Siyam. You know the difference? You can practice Sawm. Sawm is what? Is to put the whole system of Islam as a way of life into practice, into action. Not just during the month of fasting. No, you should carry the month of fasting with you once the month of fasting is over. So that The month of fasting comes for 1 month. After that 1 month, the whole year becomes a month of what? Fasting. Because you were trained to hold your anger, you were trained to have patience, you were trained to have good akhlaq, you were trained to do so many things. Now is your opportunity to continue forward. Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam says, أمسك لسانك فإنها صدقة تصدق بها على نفسك. In fact, when you hold your tongue, you are doing yourself an act of charity, not against others, but against your own self. It's like you are paying charity on your behalf. ولا يعرف عبد حقيقة الإيمان حتى يخزن من لسانه. And no one would know or realize the truth about faith and Iman until what? Until he preserves his tongue. Until he puts his tongue within his. And it's amazing how Allah created us. Only when it comes to the tongue, you have double barriers. Right? You have set of teeth and set of lips. It's like Allah is reminding you, before you utter a word, consider what you are about to say. Before you open your teeth, before you open or part away your lips, make sure the word you're about to say, either it's meaningful or what? Unmeaningful. If it is meaningful, then don't hold it back, especially if you can't point out to the truth. You know, there is a hadith about Imam Ali. He says, there is no goodness in remaining silent when it comes to what? To the truth. Of course, that's a different scenario. When there is a matter of truth and you are able to advance that truth, then remaining silent is what? Is not good. That's why Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, the hadith I was about to say about Sawm, that Rasulullah advises, if someone comes to interrogate you, if someone comes to provoke you in the month of Ramadan, he's trying to pick a fight with you, a verbal fight, a verbal argument. What does Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam say in return? Say, Allahumma inni sa'im. Say to that person, I am observing fasting. Fasting against what? Fasting against the violation of my integrity. I don't want to lose my integrity. I don't want to lose my honor. I don't want to lose my principles. And I do not want to lose my siyam. Right? In engaging in something futile, in engaging in something useless, in engaging in something that will not bring me any benefit, rather it will bring me only harm. So in that case, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, in fact, you would be doing yourself a favor if you hold your tongue back at times. And Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam says in another hadith, in another narration, اخزل لسانك إلا من خير فإنك بذلك تغلب الشيطان. Preserve your tongue except in saying what is good. Because if you do so, you will beat Satan at his best, at his game, if I may say. Why? Because what does Satan want from you? To vent, right? And when you vent against someone that is trying to provoke you, you're going to lose control. And Imam Ali says, he who angers you, what does he do to you? Controls you. When someone angers you, it means he knows your weakness. Right? When I can make you angry, I will make you jump. You know? And the more I'll make you angry, the more you will jump. Because you lost control. And when you lose control, what is the first thing you lose control with? Your tongue. Right? You start lashing at people left, right, and center. وعن أمير المؤمنين صلوات الله وسلامه عليه, in his advice to his son Muhammad ibn Hanafi, Imam Ali gives a wasiyah or an advice to him, Muhammad ibn Hanafi. He says, ما خلق الله عز وجل شيئا أحسن من الكلام ولا أقبح منه. Allahu Akbar. At the same time, Imam Ali says to Muhammad ibn Hanafi, nothing did Allah create that could be better or worse than what? Than speaking. Right? بالكلام ابيضت الوجوه وبالكلام اسودت الوجوه. Allah. Imam Ali says, with what you say, your face becomes what? Brightened. What does that mean? Your face becomes brightened. Is that when you speak nicely, your status, your value system, your position with people will be what? Will be honored. right? Because people benefit from what you say. When you say something useful, people praise you, not for the sake of the praise. We already established that when we do an action, we do it for the sake of who? Allah, not for the sake of praise. I'm not waiting for someone to say, mashallah, Sheikh, your lecture today was perfect. Who cares? Right? Alright, you know why? Who cares? Because if someone comes to me and say your lecture today was perfect and I feel good at it, on the day of judgment when I go and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, yes, what do you want? I say, I want my reward for calling people to your religion. He says, you've already been given your reward. Didn't people say about you, you gave a great lecture and you felt good about yourself? You would say yes. He said, then why are you claiming your haq from me now? Your haq has already been what? Paid. Right? You've already got your payment because you didn't do it. You didn't do it for me. You did it so people will say you are good. Well, then you would have wasted all your deeds and action. ابيضت وجوه وبالكلام اسودت وجوه. Also, based on what you say, you may lose what? You may lose your face. You may lose your respect. Because you may say something foul. You know, you may swear. You may accuse someone. You may bring injustice by one word on someone that is what? Innocent. Possible or not? How many people were put to death from a word that was what? Shahadatu zur. Right? That was a false testimony. It brought people to where? To their execution. Though they were innocent. From what? From words. Again, from talking. اسودت الوجوه واعلم أن الكلام في وثاقك. الله أكبر. This is a beautiful hadith. Meaning, you must know that whatever you say is under your control until what? It comes out. Once it comes out, you become what? Under its control. Allahu Akbar. So when we say something, before I say anything, I'm already what? I'm the king. Right? Like Imam Ali, salawatullahi wasalam alayhi, the cousin of the Prophet, sallallahu alayhi wasallam, he says what? He says, sometimes I would be in a majlis, like in a gathering like this, and I would see someone that looks, whoa, amazing. You know? على راسه شو اسمه ريشة. On his head there is a halo. You know what a halo? You know that light ring? الهالة. بالإنجليزي يسموه halo. Alright? It's like he has a halo on his head. It's like he has light over his head. And Imam Ali, until he opens his mouth, he says, once he opens his mouth, Ya Latif al-Alqaf, najjina mimma nakhaf. Once he open his mouth, I would know whether this guy is really what he is or what he is not. Right? Because of the things he is saying or uttering in that regard. طيب. وَأَعْلَمْ أَنَّ الْكَلَامَ فِي وِثَاقِكَ ما لم تتكلم به فإذا تكلمت به صرت في وثاق فاخزن لسانك كما تخزن ذهبك وورقك. What does that mean? So hold your tongue back and preserve it and protect it in the same way you protect your gold and silver. ورق in Arabic means what? Silver. قالوا فبعثوا أحدكم بورقكم هذه على سورة أهل الكهف. سورة أهل الكهف يعني send one of you with silver coins to bring us some food. Right? فبعثوا أحدكم بورقكم هذه يأتنا أيها أزكى طعاما أو يرى أيها أزكى فليأتنا به. Alright? Whatever the gist of the meaning. So the ورق is the silver. طيب. Protect your words and your tongue like you protect gold and silver. And look what the Imam says. Because a tongue is like كلب عقور أجلكم. It's like a stray dog. The tongue is like a stray dog. Stray dog is useful or harmful? Harmful. If it bites you and you don't go and get a tetanus needle, you'll die. Right? If a stray dog bites you and you don't get a tetanus needle on the spot, what will happen to that person? He may die. Look at the metaphor that Imam Ali uses in comparison to the tongue. He said, when you lash your tongue out, It's like a loose cannon. It could destroy a whole community and society. And you know, in the Quran, there is always an emphasis on what? On the tongue. وَالَّذِينَ يَرْمُونَ الْمُحْصَنَاتِ وَالَّذِينَ يَقْذُفُونَ الْمُحْصَنَاتِ. Those who falsely allege any form of lies against what? المحصنة من؟ المرأة المتزوجة. ليش سميت محصنة؟ لأن عندها زوج. Why was a woman in Islam called محصنة? Because she is under the protection of a husband. So it is not conceivable that a married woman, right, who knows her duties, or a married man who knows his duties would do anything outside the marital what? Domain or circle, right? Accusing a married woman, right, falsely without bringing 4 witnesses, the punishment will turn not against the woman but will turn against the 4 who brought the allegation forward. Right? Why? Because they did not see. And Imam Ali says what? الْمَسَافَةُ بَيْنَ الْحَقِّ وَالْبَاطِلِ أَرْبَعَةُ أَصَابِعٍ. The distance between truth and falsehood is the distance of 4 fingers. وَوَضَعَ يَدَهُ أَوْ أَصَابِعَهُ بَيْنَ أُذُنِهِ وَعَيْنِ قَالَ مَا تَسْمَعْ فَهُوَ شو باطل وَمَا تَرَى فَهُوَ حَقٍّ. Whatever you hear in law, you know, in law, go to any court of law in New Zealand. And by the way, in New Zealand, you know, we should praise this country and salute it. Who knows why? بعد الصلاة على محمد وآل محمد. They did a survey, I think in Harvard University, I'm not sure, about which country applies true Islamic principles in their legal system. They found New Zealand to be #1 in closeness to the laws of Islam, in its justice system. That's how just this country is when it deals with its people. So be proud when you carry that New Zealand passport, you know, it's like you are something, you know. Yeah, you are 4 million, but it doesn't matter. وَكَمْ مِنْ فِئَةٌ قَلِيلَةٌ غلبت فئة كثيرة بإذن الله. والغلبة هنا بالأخلاق مو بالعضلات. How many times people who are in minority, they actually glow over the majority. By what? By way of intellect, not by way of muscles, right? By way of intellect. When you have intellect, you will always be able to be ahead of everyone else. Because when someone uses his muscles against you to tackle you, and you have the brain to subdue him, then you will always come on top. You will always come on top in that regard. So what the Imam is trying to say here is we should not allow ourselves, God forbid, to say or speak in a way that takes away. احنا بالعربي شو عندنا المثل اللي يقول انه يروح بماء الوجه، يذهب بماء الوجه. Sometimes when you speak in a manner that is not befitting to your principle and to your value, it says you take your face away, right? تسقط قيمتك بين الناس. Your value between or among people will be taken away. And look what then the Imam says. وَرُبَّ كَلِمَةٍ سَلَبَتْ نِعْمَةً. And perchance one word could take a blessing away. Right? Could take a blessing away. Because Allah wants to give you that blessing. But you say something that is not befitting even against who? Even against God. Right? Let's say sometimes, do we find or do we see ourselves in a position where we are being tried? We go through a trial, right? Through a challenge. When you go through a challenge is to promote you or to demote you. What does a challenge do to you? I'll give you an example. Why do you sit for an exam? Because examiners wants to make your life difficult? Yes, I know the answer from the back, all right? No, the students at the back. Yeah, they say, of course, examiners wants to make our life miserable. No, it's not. Actually, they are challenging you to be a better person, to excel at what you are doing, right? So when they give you a list of questions, right? When they give you a list of questions and you've studied for them, you've challenged yourself to overcome these questions, can you go ahead? No, you know, in our countries, in the Arab world, if you don't pass the year, you don't go forward, right? So, forget it. You'll stay 6 years. It's just like two brothers were in the same year. One 12 years old and the one is 18. So the teacher asked the 18 years old, why the hell are you still in year 8? He says, I'm catching up with him. I have to wait for him because my father said, never leave the side of your brother. This poor guy had to say 6 years with his brother because he couldn't leave the side of his brother. He had to repeat, وهذا أبو 12 ما قاعد ينجح ولا بشيء. ساقط بكل سنين عمره. Anyway, so the issue is, it is to challenge you, to make you excel, not to put you backward. No, on the contrary. So, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala challenges you, don't despair, don't complain, don't say the famous word of what? Why me? Right? Why me? تسقط النعم. Why me takes a ni'mah away. Right? Why me is that you are saying God doesn't know what He's doing. Why me? And how many times you said why me and later on you found out, oh my God, I wish it was only me. Right? If it was, I wish it was only me, because you were saved from something which is far greater than what was taken away from you initially. Right? What was taken from you initially. And then the Imam salawatullah wa salamu alayhi continues about, you know, other stuff. Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam again says, Ya Rasulullah, a person came to Rasulullah. He says, Ya Rasulullah, give me a piece of advice. You know, sometimes Rasulullah, because he came to people that were very shallow at times in their thinking, like Bedouins, they were very shallow. He didn't make things difficult for them, right, intellectually. So someone would come, and when the Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam would say something to them, it's as if they feel that what Rasulullah is telling them is not good enough. You know, it's not good enough. Just like that Bedouin who came to Rasulullah and he said, Ya Rasulullah, give me a piece of advice. He said, don't get angry. So that man said, فأوصني. يعني again, أوصني. قال لا تغضب. You know, the first thing he asked Rasulullah, said, give me a piece of advice. Rasulullah said, don't get angry. The man thought, sure, don't get angry. That's peanuts. I want something more. It's like he wanted the Prophet to give him, like, you know, a book worth of advice. You know, do this, don't do that, be like this, you know. That. He said, Awsini. Again, he repeated the same thing. Ya Rasulullah, give me a piece of advice. He said, don't get angry. The guy started getting angry. He said, Ya Rasulullah, Awsini. You know, Rasulullah said, I told you, don't get angry. Simple. Don't get angry, because anger can take you away from many things. Here, in another instance, another person came to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He said, Ya Rasulullah, awsini. Qala, ihfad lisanak. He said, protect your tongue, watch your language. Qala, Ya Rasulullah, awsini. Qala, ihfad lisanak. He said, protect or hold your tongue or preserve your tongue. Ma ajbit al-hijaya. قال يا رسول الله أوصني. Again, for the third time, he said to the Prophet, counsel me, give me a piece of advice. He said, احفظ لسانك, woe unto you. Don't you know that people go to hellfire because of what they say? What else do you want me to tell you in terms of advice? Most people are led to Jahannam, وَالْعِيَاذُ بِاللَّهِ, to hellfire because of what they say. Because it leads to disasters. Right? It leads to absolute disasters. And when you acknowledge a statement that is false, you are actually contributing to injustice or not. You are contributing to an act of injustice. Then the Imam describes the people with the attributes of being God conscious. He said, وَإِنْ ضَحِكَ خلصنا من شو اسمه الكلام. وإن ضحك لم يعلو صوته. When he laughs, he doesn't laugh to such a degree where 13 neighbors from his house would hear his voice. Right? Because he's always modest and moderate in everything that he does. Right? He's moderate in the way he eats, moderate in the way he spends, moderate in the way he laughs, moderate in the way he even frowns, you know. Not every time he comes home, a state of emergency is declared. Lesh, because he's at home now, everyone has to be silent. Everyone cannot utter a word. The boss is at home. So the boss, when he is at home, ومن علامات الإيمان العبوسة. Really? Is it part of faith to be frowning? احنا بنقول إنه النبي ما عبس ولا تولى. We say that the Prophet did not frown. Yet, on a scale of 10, I think Muslims will score 9.5 of frowning. Sorry to say that. Right? On a scale of 10, we would be the ones that would frown the most. Here, although in this particular characteristic, where Imam Ali says, a true God-conscious person does not smile excessively or laughs excessively. Of course, smiling excessively, smile as much as you want, right? But laughter excessively with what? With sound, with voice. In fact, laughter is good, by the way, to your heart. Do we have heart surgeons here? They say if you laugh, it takes depression away. Meaning, you know what they mean by laughter and happiness, and smiling is to actually be positive and happy. When you are positive and happy, you don't become stressed and anxious. And when you don't become stressed and anxious, you don't go into what? Depression. What is the #1 killer disease in the world today? Depression, right? What is the most selling tablet in the world today? Depression tablets, you know? Pharmaceutical companies are minting money from our depression. They're milking money from our depression. Why? Because they want you to be depressed. Because if you are not depressed, if you're not weighed down by commercialism, if you're not weighed down by materialism, if you're not weighed down by mortgage, right? Then how are they going to make money from you? Right? They're not going to be able to. I remember once I was in a court interpreting for a client. I wasn't interpreting for that client, but another guy came into the court, and we had a judge in Sydney. He was from the countryside, you know, not from the city. He had a beard up to his navel. You know, he was one of those real fair dinkum country people. So he was sitting on the bench and looking at this case. What was the case? This guy stole a Louis Vuitton bag. Something that is impossible to do, by the way. Especially in Louis Vuitton stores. Okay? But he managed, the son of a gun. How? I don't know. Alright? So he managed to steal a Louis Vuitton bag. Now, the judge is not worried about him stealing the Louis Vuitton. Look what he was worried about. When the prosecutor told him how much the Louis Vuitton was. He was saying, you know, this guy is charged with stealing a Louis Vuitton bag at 6,500. The judge said, wait. Are you serious? A bag for 6,500?
Yes.
He said, the prosecutor thought he said some misread. He said, Your Honor, that's what the paper says. He said, what the hell? Who would make a bag for $6,500? Why? You know? Why? What is the problem? You know why? The problem is so that they make you enslaved to a brand name. It's like if you don't have that brand name, you don't count as a human. You know? And this starts with us from a very, very young age. With our children, we raise them. To such an extent that our children come home and they say, you know, Mom, what is this Dunlop brand that you bought me from Kmart? My next door friend today came to school with the latest Nike Air. Wallah, I won't go to bed if you don't bring me a Nike Air tomorrow. You look at him, he's 6 years old. How do you know Nike Air, for God's sake? You know? It's commercialism, right? It's all this to do with commercialism. If you don't buy it, if you don't acquire a particular status, and this what gives you what, if you don't get it, what happens to you? Depression, right? Absolutely, you're gonna get depressed because you see someone driving a $750,000, you know, dollar worth car down, you know what you call it, this lake road in Devonport. It's orange. Lamborghini. It roars, man. When you drive next to it, the whole road shakes. And you look at it. وكأنه على رأسك الطير. So you're mesmerized by it. It's like a bird standing on your head from absolute motionless, you know, and your jaw starts to drop as you see that car driving by. You say, oh, if only I was behind that wheel, I would rev the hell out of this car, right? I would really rev it, and each rev of that car is $50. You know that? Just put your leg on the accelerator, just rev it, $50, because that's how much petrol it will waste. You know, I remember I was in Orlando once, and a young boy came to one of our community members. MashaAllah, he was very well off, very well off. He had a Lamborghini. So that young boy, he was 17 years old, said, "Uncle, please just give me a spin, just around the block." He said, "Oh, no, take it." He took it. As he was coming back, the owner heard that young boy revving the car. He looked at me and said, "Sheikh, if this guy revs it one more time, I'm going to kill him, because each rev is $35. I said, "La hawla wa la quwwata illa billah." If you want to start calculating how each rev you will lose in petrol, why did you buy the Lamborghini in the first place? Right? But that's how we are tuned to think. Wal'iyadu billah. We become part and parcel of that particular environment, and we get depressed. So laughter, smiling, positiveness is what takes away your depression. Abu Abdullah salawatullah wa salam alayh, he says, "Iyyakum wal mizah." But how? "Iyyakum wal mizah فإنه يذهب بماء الوجه." قوله "إياكم والمزاح فإنه يذهب بماء الوجه" كأنه التحذير من كثرة المزاح لا عين أصل المزاح. You know what the Imam is saying? Don't joke too much, because it takes your respect away. What the Imam is saying, that joking in itself is not bad. Excessiveness is what is bad. Why? Because people will not take you serious after that. You know, cry wolf? You know that little boy who cried wolf? You know, he was making a joke on his community. You know, they came for the rescue. First time there was no wolf. Second time there was no wolf. A story we were told when we were young, right? Third time the wolf what? Came, ate him. No one bothered, right? Because no one takes you serious. No one takes you serious. But if you are with friends and whatever, look what happens next in terms of the actual hadith of being playful and joking and being nice with others. Because Islam and AhlulBayt are very balanced. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam is very balanced. Again, Abu Abdullah himself, يعني who Imam Sadiq. In one place, Imam Sadiq says, "Don't do excessive joking." In another place, he's asking someone from his community. So the Imam, someone came to visit the Imam. The Imam is asking him. Imam, by the way, is the name for a leader. For those who don't understand, or if we have any guests that don't understand certain Arabic words. So an Imam is a leader. So this leader asked his community, كيف مداعبة بعضكم بعضا? You know, when you get together and you're sitting at home, how do you joke with one another? Do you joke with one another? So the man said, قلت قليل. No, we are very, forget it, man. We just frown at one another, man. We don't have time for jokes, you know. We don't have time for jokes. قال فلا تفعلوا. Don't be serious with one another. فإن المداعبة من حسن الخلق. Allahu Akbar. Being joyful, being jokeful, if I may use this term, jokeful, I don't know if it exists in English, but anyway, I just made another word, right? Being joyful or being, you know, someone that cracks jokes, according to the Imam, he said it is something that indicates good what? Good manners, good morals. وَإِنَّكَ لَتُدْخِلُ بِهَا السُّرُورَ عَلَىٰ أَخِيكَ. And when you do so, you are making your brother or sister what? Happy. وَلَقَدْ كَانَ رَسُولُ اللَّهِ صَلَّى اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِ وَآلِهِ وَسَلَّمَ. And the Prophet صلى الله عليه وسلم used to joke with people. His only intention is to what? Is to make him happy. To make him happy. And in one story, someone came to Rasulullah. He says, Ya Rasulullah, put me on the back of a camel. He said, no, we'll put you on the back of the child of a camel. So that man said, why Ya Rasulullah on the child? He said, doesn't a camel give birth to a camel? What's your problem? You know, he's joking with him. He said, I'm just joking with you. Of course, the daughter or the son of a camel gives what? It's not going to give birth to a tiger. Right? And you said, put me on the back of a camel. And I'm telling you, no, I'm going to put you on there. So he used to joke, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And one day, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, a Bedouin came to him and gave the Prophet a gift. After he gave him a gift, he said to Rasulullah, how about paying me for it? Wallah, this is a true story. فَضَحِكَ رَسُولُ اللَّهِ until his, what do you call these teeth? Dr. Canine? Yeah, his canine teeth showed because of his laughter. And then look what happened. And Rasulullah then said, a while after a while, he was sitting down once and he had a lot of issues on his head. You know, government or delegations or Muslims giving him trouble sometimes. He said, I wish that Arabi would come to make me laugh. Allah. He said, I wish that Bedouin would come to make me laugh. There's nothing wrong with that. You know, of course, in moderation. In moderation, because it makes a person good, right? Someone suggested that I get a bifocal, by the way, because I keep taking my glasses off. Inshallah, when I turn 16, I'll get one. And here, look at this term now, or look at this characteristic of a God-conscious person. وَإِن بُغِيَ عَلَيْهِ Here where your true colors show. You know, where a true color of a person who is decent and God-conscious and a real gentleman, right, shows. Of course, a real lady shows as well, right? When وَإِن بُغِيَ عَلَيْهِ صَبَرَ حَتَّى يَكُونَ اللَّهُ هُوَ الَّذِي يَنْتَقِمُنَا. Allahu Akbar. When someone abuses him, when someone transgresses against him, when someone mishandles him, he does not take action. He remains patient until God is the judge. God is the one that intervenes. God the one that comes and takes revenge for him or pays his due back. Why? Because al-baghi wal-iyadu billah is such an awful trait. In fact, it is one of the kinds or types of kibr. When someone becomes mutakabbir, when someone becomes arrogant, he does what? He becomes baghi, yabghi ala al-ghayr, mistreats them, does not respect them, so he becomes baghi. البغي هو أفحش أنواع الكبر ويؤدي إلى عدم الانقياد لمن يجب أن ينقاد له كالأنبياء وأوصيائهم وعدم الانقياد للأنبياء يؤدي إلى الكفر الموجب للهلاك الأبدي. والعياذ بالله. It's not simple, you know. To transgress against someone here, it says what? It makes you go outside the dominion, the circle of following who? The prophets and their awsiya. And if you don't follow the prophets and their awsiya, this will take you away from faith completely. Because then you will make your own laws. Then you will start living your own life according to your own whims and desires, right? So you'll go outside the fold of what? Outside the fold of the message of the prophets. قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم إن أعجل الشر عقوبة البغي. He said, the shortest and the quickest torture or torment or punishment that Allah will give to someone, if that someone is what? Baghi. If that person is a transgressor. He transgresses against others. وقال صلى الله عليه وسلم حق على الله عز وجل. ما حد يحق على الله شيء, right? حق على الله means it is incumbent on Allah. Here, in this particular statement, no one forces Allah, right? Because He is the sovereign creator. So what does it mean, حق على الله? It means God made it what? Himself, right? It is God who made it on Himself to do what? To do the following. حق على الله عز وجل أن لا يبغي شيء على شيء إلا أذله الله. والعياذ بالله. Allah made it incumbent that if someone is transgressor against someone, Allah will humiliate that person. وَلَوْ أَنَّ جَبَلًا بَغَى عَلَى جَبَلٍ لَهَدَّ اللَّهُ الْبَاغِيَ عَنْ مِنْهُمَا. Allah. Even if a mountain takes the place of another mountain, that's metaphoric, of course, right? That's metaphoric. Even if a mountain takes the place of another mountain, Allah will put that mountain down because of its what? Transgression. Because it's doing something that is not right. وقال الصادق صلوات الله وسلامه عليه ألقوا بينهم عفوا وقال الصادق يقول إبليس لجنوده. Imam al-Sadiq said that Satan says to his legions, to his army, what does he say? ألقوا بينهم الحسد والبغي فإنهما يعدلان عند الله الشرك. والعياذ بالله. You know, Satan says to his legions, to his army, he says, bring between people what? Two qualities. Two bad qualities. What are they? Envy and transgression. Transgression. To transgress against someone. Because both of these things equal what? Associating partners with Allah. It's like putting partners with Allah. And then the Imam sallallahu alayhi says to some of his friends, انظر أن لا تكلمن بكلمة بغي أبدا وإن أعجبتك نفسك وعشيرتك. Allahu Akbar. The Imam says, don't allow yourself even to utter a word of transgression, even if you feel proud about yourself or you come from a big what? Tribe, so that it can back you up, right? If you have a big tribe, they back you up, right? Don't take pride in the fact that you have a big family or big pride that will make you say something that is transgressional or something that you transgress with against people, thinking that your family or your pride or your arrogance or your tribe will protect you, right? Because if Allah wants to get you, He will get you in that regard. Sallu ala Muhammadin wa ali Muhammad. Just to finish this segment, if I can before, because we only have 2 more nights, Allahu A'lam, yani if Eid is Wednesday, we only have 2 more nights inshallah. And I don't believe this month has just finished, honestly, wallah. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant us the opportunity and to list our names with those who will have the opportunity to be around next Ramadan or the next month of Ramadan, inshallah. Then the Imam says about those who have God consciousness in them or God righteousness in them, and I finish. He said, نَفْسُهُ مِنْهُ فِي عَنَاءٍ وَالنَّاسُ مِنْهُ فِي رَاحَةٍ. Allahu Akbar. This is such a beautiful quality about a God conscious person. He says he's always hard on himself, but when it comes to dealing with others, people always are free from his problems. He does not put his problems on others. النَّاسُ مِنْهُ فِي رَاحَةٍ. He never puts any burden on anyone. No, they see him, he's happy, you know. As they say in another hadith in Imam Ali. Imam Ali has another hadith. He says, a true believer is someone that wears sadness inside his heart and wears a smile on his face. Allahu Akbar. دائما مبتسم بشوش. He's happy, he's joyful. People think that this person is what? Is trouble-free, problem-free, because he does not take his burden on others. In another quality of the muttaqeen, if you remember, you know, or in one of the ahadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he says a true mu'min does not even complain of pain, so that he would not worry anyone until after the pain is gone. Subhanallah. Once the pain is gone, he says, Alhamdulillah, I had this problem, but now it's gone. Alhamdulillah, you don't worry anyone, right? Imagine if you come and tell your, for example, your family, you know, in the middle of night, 12 o'clock, just after you came from your next shift, you know, I just went to the doctor and the doctor says, you have 6 months to live. Are you serious? This is a news you break at 12 o'clock at night to your family, you know, just for sympathy, you know, for sympathy. So they can look after you more and more. You know, Rasulullah says, no. Although your family should know something about you, you know, but a true mu'min is someone that holds back so that he does not become a burden or he does not cause strife within his setup. What sort of a person is that? Honestly, isn't that divine? Isn't that person someone that his heart and mind and his whole existence is for God and attached to God, that he does not want to be even a burden on his own family members? It's unbelievable. You know, Rasulullah enters his home, salawatullah wa salam alayhi. You know what the work of Rasulullah involved dealing with these Meccans? You know, or dealing with the Medinan society and all the plots and the problem that he used to have, having to deal with people that threw rubbish at him, that threw the intestine of dead camels on his back while he was praying. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam faced such predicament from people in his community. And then when he goes home, does he sit down and starts giving orders? Yalla argila. Rasulullah, can you imagine? Yalla ahwa. يلا شاي يلا باتشا يلا ما ادري شو وانت شنو قاعد تسوي طول اليوم بس اوامر طب قوم ما البيت بيتك والاهل اهلك right no look at Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam when his wife was asked what was the prophet condition at home what would he do at home he said he always helps with household work. Ooh. Imagine saying this to our men يا لطيف الألطاف وين مال الرشوة أمس الحج مال الرشوة مو موجود اليوم الله يمسيه بالخير قال النسوان دافعين لي رشوة علشان أحكي من يومهم. Alright, so if I mention this today, you know, that men would, you know, once I was giving a lecture in Sydney and I said it was a lecture for the youth. I don't know how this khala was in the audience. I did not see her. But she was there. I think she was upstairs or something. She was the mother of one of those youth. She was sitting upstairs. Yeah? And I was giving a lecture. I saying, you know, guys, when you get married, prepare yourself. You're going to wash dishes. You're going to vacuum. You're going to mend your clothes. If a button is undone, don't wait for your wife to do it. Go and get, you know, a thread and needle and do it yourself, because that's what the Prophet used to do. It's like this lady upstairs was on fire. She couldn't wait for the lecture to finish. She came bolting at me. After I finished the lecture, she came in the men's section, you know, and she said, Sheikh, like this. I said, Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. Akid fi mushkila al-yawm. Come, like this. Not even come. Like this. So I came to her, I said, Naam khalti, my aunt, how can I say? She said, why are you polluting our children's mind with such rubbish? I said, what? What did I say? She said, how dare you teach my child, who is going to be a husband, to stand at the sink and wash dishes? Wallah, wallah, wallah. If my son does it, I'll disown him. لا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله. إيش دعوة؟ إيش قلنا؟ إيش سوينا؟ We said what the Prophet did, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. I didn't say anything that the Prophet didn't do. She said, listen, this is your Prophet. I don't know which Prophet you're talking about. I said, seriously? No, no. This is the same Prophet. Wallah, mine and yours. He's the same one. No, it doesn't work with some people, you know, because sometimes culture overrules what? Religion. Culture overtakes religion. عفوا. لا احنا انتوا خشوا كلش. انا بس اعطي امثله عن استراليا، ما اعطي امثله عن نيوزلندا. صلوا على محمد وآل محمد. So I will wrap up. نفسه منه في عناء والناس منه في راحة. Himself, he troubles himself, he does everything himself, he tries his level best to help and do whatever he wants himself, you know, until he becomes tired. Tired physically, I mean, not emotionally, no, tired physically. But people are what? Are at ease with him. And look what, no, I'll leave it to tomorrow because it's quite a long one. So I'll stop here. And again, I request your good selves to please join me in reciting five times the famous dua, أَمَّنْ يُجِيبُ الْمُضْطَرَّ إِذَا دَعَاهُ وَيَكْشِفُ السُّوءَ. Seriously, there are few people who approached and said they want a special prayer today because maybe, Allahu Alam, they're going through a particular difficulty or a particular problem. So let's affiliate with them, let's sympathize, empathize with our brothers and sisters, whether Muslims, non-Muslims, those who have needs, those who have issues, those who have, you know, no one to pray for them. Isn't there in the world people who don't have any? There's possibly a lot of people who have no one to pray for them. Let us include them in our prayers as well as an act of charity and an act of generosity on our part. 5 times from your pure heart, pure tongue, pure mouth. to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala directly. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Amman yujibu al-mudtarra idha da'a wa yakshifu as-su'. Amman yujibu al-mudtarra idha da'a wa yakshifu as-su'. Amman yujibu al-mudtarra idha da'a wa yakshifu as-su'. Amman yujibu al-mudtarra idha da'a wa yakshifu. Last one. Amman yujibu al-mudtarra idha da'a wa yakshifu as-su'. Surely who other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala can alleviate problems and take away corruption but himself with his sovereign power. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعلى هذه النية الفاتحة تسبقها الصلاة على محمد وآل محمد.